What we saw was this 21-year-old man dressed casually, just shorts and a t-shirt, really walking very slowly backwards with his hands on his head towards a group of armed FBI agents. They had their weapons trained upon him. The arrest, though, was peaceful. When he got to them, he allowed them to handcuff him. He was then led to a car and driven away. Now, earlier in the day, U.S. media had identified that suspect as Jack Teixeira, a 21-year-old working for the Air National Guard. And shortly after those dramatic images emerged from Massachusetts, the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland confirmed the arrest.
Teixeira is an employee of the United States Air Force National Guard. FBI agents took Teixeira into custody earlier this afternoon without incident. He will have an initial appearance at the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts.
And so, Barbara, it doesn't sound like this young guy has any attachment whatsoever to other nations. Does it sound like he was just doing this out of his own interest?
Well, the only picture we have of him is coming from other members of that online group, a Discord group, some of whom have been speaking to the media. And the picture that they paint is, yes, that this was a guy who was telling this group that they should understand more about the world. He was essentially a leader of the group. And one of the members spoke, for example, to the Washington Post. He said the guy who he didn't name as Teixeira, he called him OG, started posting these documents several months ago. But he didn't post the documents initially, this alleged member said. He said he transcribed from memory these documents, but then he got angry because people weren't paying that much attention to them. So at some point he started posting actual images, photographs of these documents. Now, that member told the Washington Post that he was a gun enthusiast, a lover of God, and that he didn't seem to be some kind of whistleblower. He also said that he wasn't some kind of Russian operative or Ukrainian operative, because, of course, these documents did contain information about U.S. assessments of, for example, Ukraine's capabilities in its war, in its planned spring offensive against Russia. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess, what comes out in the court documents. He's expected to appear in Boston tomorrow. Meanwhile, here at the Pentagon, the Department of Defense obviously very much looking into this, because there are questions about how such a young man was able to access such classified material, and how he was not only accessing it, but at some point has either been able to photograph it in a secure location or been able to smuggle these documents out of that secure location. So the Department of Defense saying it will look into that and it will make changes if necessary.
And Barbara, so yesterday we had the story about the US apparently being concerned about what Antonio Guterres was doing, the UN Secretary General, in relation to his connections with, the way he was approaching negotiations with Russia about the grain cargo that left Ukraine, was able to be negotiated through. Was that part of this, and that's an indication of just how broad and extensive this was?
Well, look, the spokesman for Antonio Guterres has come out today with a diplomatic statement saying that, Antonio Guterres knows that he is surveyed, that those kind of activities go on. I mean, these documents did also show that eavesdropping, if you will, on the UN chief, also on allies such as South Korea, and the deliberations that they were having at the highest level about the war in Ukraine. But really, these are activities that, as we know, all nation states carry out. What doesn't usually happen, and certainly doesn't appear to have happened to this extent since the leaks by Edward Snowden a decade ago, is that information is made public. Interestingly, Joe Biden appeared to be trying to play it all down today, saying, yeah, of course he was concerned about the leaks, but that he didn't think, essentially, that they had any contemporaneous value. I think that's still to be evaluated. No one's confirming exactly how many documents leaked then from that Discord group into the wider internet, into other chat groups. So it'll be interesting to see this time tomorrow if we've learned any more about the case against this 21-year-old after that initial court appearance.